What I wanted to do to begin the session, which I hope in good Chicago tradition will be mostly a discussion, is to begin by sketching in very broad strokes what I see as the history, and particularly the recent history of undergraduate education, but we can also talk about graduate education at the University of Chicago. Some of this comes simply from working for 3 years with John Boyer, where you imbibe this, in the air, through your skin, at every event where he sort of brings his deep knowledge of the institution to issues of the present day. It's a little alarming now to recognize that I also now have a long history with the institution, having been here as a doctoral student in the 1980s, and after that I went to teach at University of Arizona, and then returned here in 2002, teaching in the sociology department, then taking 3 years as master of the social science collegiate division, and having a leave a little cut short because it turns out I'm now incoming chair of sociology. So I'll try and combine what I've learned from John, what one learns simply from reading the plaques in the institution and going to meetings, and then my own experience. The big story, as I think many of you are very aware of, is since the 1970s, there really has been a sustained shift in the demography of the student body at the University of Chicago. So when I was here in the 1980s, it still remained an overwhelmingly graduate and professional campus. I believe it was roughly about 2/3 graduate and professional, with a considerably smaller college, both relative to graduate and professional students, and historically, as John Boyer will argue, up through the 1930s. This was a much larger undergraduate college than the one that many of you remember from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. There are a complex set of reasons why decisions were made to shift that mix. But the project was really undertaken with a deep commitment to do that in a way that sustained and improved the traditions of and pedagogical commitments of the college to instruction in small sections with faculty, through discussion, through close reading of texts. And I'm sure if you have come to previous reunions or simply read the magazine, you have a good sense of what that has involved, the occasional controversies that has engendered, notably the core wars of the 1990s, and I think the real successes in that it remains, I think, a really distinctive and attractive feature of the university, as well as one that's centrally valued by almost all of the alumni that I have spoken to over the years. They may have forgotten a few of the texts, but there are always a few of them that remain deeply and vibrantly in their intellectual imagination. This was sort of a sustained and planned project, and over the last few years it became a little bit more interesting as that planned project of growth came to what was understood to be an end, but that then encountered a planned additional project, which was an effort to much more closely integrate pedagogical training and graduate instructions, in some ways to deliver more fully on something that Chicago has always valued, namely the number of future teachers in colleges who have been trained here. So there had been a plan to sort of change that, to integrate the two projects that until then had really proceeded on quite separate tracks, although graduate students have long taught both as teaching assistants and occasionally as prize lecturers in the college. This was a much more sort of insistent, focused, planful effort to bring the two together. and then there was that little global economic meltdown. These two came almost at the same moment, which led to a sort of interesting couple of years, let me say. I really needed this year of leave to recover from that. I think the good news, well, I know the good news, is that we've come through this, I think, tremendously well. Preserving the continuities and traditions of pedagogy that are really central to what it means distinctively to have a Chicago education. But I think also setting the stage for what I fully expect to be a really exciting period of sort of opening and enriching a set of opportunities. Let me just sketch a couple of these, and then I really do want to open it to discussion. I think the changes have been, if you've been following the news, we had an unexpectedly larger yield of students who will be arriving here next fall. And that's part of a process of increasingly becoming a more competitive institution in terms of admissions. But that's not really what matters. What matters is that the quality of students is really quite extraordinary. And faculty really notice this in class. It's as though, you know, there's a part of the distribution in terms of talent that's not there, and they're just extraordinary students. That's a challenge to faculty as well, because they really demand a lot. And so I think all of us are adjusting to a changed culture in the classroom, while, as I said, really being committed to maintaining that pedagogical tradition. What this student body expects, and what I think we're really excited to be offering in much greater numbers, though, is to link that sort of rich tradition of critical reading and discussion in the core to a set of sort of tracks or pilgrimages through the university that then allows students to really focus in their majors and beyond on developing a quite advanced basis of knowledge, set of analytic skills. Link that then in some ways with the practice of being an educated person, either in the world or in the laboratory or in the archive, and then cycle that back into courses that either are officially big problems courses or that function as it, where we have students bringing the benefit of all that experience into the classroom. This is embodied physically in things like the new Logan Arts Center, which will involve a much more sort of extensive and expansive integration of the arts with the curriculum. It's also there in a set of new kinds of courses that integrate some kind of internship or practicum with the curriculum, as well as a whole set of internship experiences and support for student research, either independent projects or in faculty labs. This, I think, although it hasn't been as central to the imagining of the college, the third and fourth years, this is actually one of the places where I think there is extraordinary energy at the moment, and part of what makes me really excited about putting one foot back into administration as department chair, where I can advance that without being utterly consumed again by administration. So it's been an interesting couple of years, but I think we have come through it, and we're at a moment of really great opportunities. So email me. I'm Clemens at University of Chicago. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Okay.